Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Draw Control podcast. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Junior on the Maryland women's lacrosse team, Aiden Can I restart that? My bad.
Yes. No, it's okay. It's Peduzzi. Yeah. You had it though.
I know, just a little tongue twist. So,
Yes, that's totally fine.
welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Draw Control podcast. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Junior on the Maryland women's lacrosse team, Aiden Peduzzi. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Aiden. And how's everything going?
Yes, thanks so much for having me. It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's very rainy here today. The weather hasn't been that good this summer, but just trying to make the most of it, I guess.
Yeah, fair.
Well, how has your summer been going so far? And have you done anything cool, whether it's lacrosse related or not?
Yeah. So I'm currently in New York City. I am a financial consultant intern right now for a consulting firm. So in terms of lacrosse related, I'm really just keeping up with conditioning and strengthening. Our new strength conditioning coach has been wonderful, sending me workouts and making sure I stay on top of that. But really, I'm doing this internship, which has been a great experience. I love New York City. I was here last summer as well. So I just got back from Greece as well, which was really fun with one of my other teammates, Kate Seitz. So it's been a really eventful summer, and I'd say we're not even halfway, maybe about halfway. So I'm excited for the rest of the summer.
That's awesome. How do you sort of work out when you're trying to balance your internship? And also, how do you sort of work out in New York City? There's so many people there. I feel like it would be hard to do that, especially like
Yeah,
conditioning stuff when you're running around all the time.
yeah, it's definitely a hard balance with the internship because it is long hours, typically 9 to 5. Most often it's longer. It ends up being either later in the evening or we start earlier. But it's really just making that time that works around it all. So typically I do early mornings. I'm an early bird. I know a lot of people are not, but I get up early and I just do my workout an hour and a half, whether that be a good hard run. Recently I've been doing some like cycle classes just to ease up on the knees, and then strengthening packet again that I've said. So yes, it's hard to find time for sure, but we have a gym in the apartment I'm living at currently, so in the building downstairs, which makes it really easy and accessible just to go down there. But there are a lot of people, like a lot of times just walking around the city is a great way to get exercise as well as people watch, which I'm a fan of. But there's so many different classes. There's you can just run up and down the city and get lost in a way, but you'll find your way back. But it's definitely been a challenge balancing the work with the conditioning, but it's really just maintaining where I left off last spring. And then once the internship ends and come preseason in the fall, really grinding again and doing more of those sprint workouts on the field.
Do you think is that something you want to work on for next season, sort of your speed on the field? Or is there other parts of your game that you're trying to improve during your time off?
Yeah, I think speed is one of my strengths, I would say, in honesty. I think one of mine is definitely conditioning. As many people know, like it's not the easiest just to run long distance. So definitely improving that, as anyone on my team would say, that's what they want to improve on as well. I also think maintaining my strength, again, not only like muscle, but movements and staying healthy is a key thing for me. In terms of lacrosse play, I think I really want to improve on just my like overall confidence of it again. I think I gain confidence very quickly, but it also goes away quickly for me. So just getting the reps back on the field will be huge for me this fall.
How do you sort of work on your confidence? Because like you said, you can lose confidence in one play, and it could take a few games for you to sort of get it back. How do you sort of
Yeah.
work on that? Because I've talked to other players on this podcast. It seems like a lot of them said when they have their confidence, that's when they're sort of playing at their best.
Yeah. It is a challenge. I think in terms of play by play, our coach always emphasizes have a goldfish memory, which I don't know if anyone's ever watched Ted Lasso, but it's they forget like forget everything really quickly. So I kind of use that as my confidence booster of like no one remembered what just happened, so you don't remember it. Like everyone's gonna move on, the next thing's gonna happen. So I kind of translate that in my game. I also believe I play the best when I'm having fun. So my other defenders will know, like I like to crack a little joke here and there to practice or in a hard run or something, just because that gives me confidence to have fun as well as like my teammates around me. So I have little ways to do it. I'm still working on it as anyone in the game is, but yeah, it's definitely a challenge. But those would be my tips, and that's kind of what I do to gain some confidence.
Now, one more question about just your whole off season. How was Greece?
Yeah, it was really fun. Definitely traveled. I've never been to Europe or over there, so did that for a week. Hopped around different islands. Saw beautiful, beautiful scenery. Met some incredible people over there as well. So definitely want to go back to Europe and do more countries like Italy. Definitely want to do Portugal, Croatia's up there. Like I want to go back as soon as I can, but that'll probably be next summer adventure.
Yeah. The only thing I know about Greece is Athens and the Acropolis. Did you get the
Yeah.
chance to see that?
Yeah, so I did briefly. I was only in Athens for a night, just like my layover to my flight back to New York. But we briefly drove around and saw some of those great monuments. But I would like to go back to Athens and really experience more of that. But unfortunately, I was only there a night.
Yeah. If I ever gone to Europe, I'll probably go to Ireland or Scotland, like somewhere out there, because I think that's
Yeah.
pretty cool and the scenery there seems pretty awesome.
Oh
So,
yeah.
well, let's transition now and talk about your lacrosse career and sort of work all the way from the beginning of it to the end or
Yeah.
to where we are now. So obviously you're from New Market, Maryland. Talk about growing up there and how'd you start playing lacrosse?
Yeah. So Newmarket, Maryland's a very small, small town in Frederick County, which is Western Maryland. Although Maryland's like the hotbed of lacrosse, my county, my town really wasn't at all. I had 14 girls on my high school team. People thought that was our senior class, but it was our entire team. But I grew up playing, I started when I was 4, just when I was younger. Honestly, one of my best friends growing up, she started playing. Her dad was the coach of our local, like, Luya team, is what it was called. And she loved it. And so she was my best friend. So I'm going to do what she's going to do. So I started playing with her, and her dad was the coach. He coached us. My parents have no background in lacrosse, have no idea really what the sport was before. So he taught me everything, my best friend's dad. And so I started from a young age, grew up playing it, got better and better. But I played a ton of other sports. So it wasn't like I was die hard in lacrosse. But as I progressed and got better, I loved it more and more. So started to invest my time really in high school with it. And then, yeah, committed early freshman year. That was the rule back then. And then here I am going into my senior year.
Now, did you watch any lacrosse growing up? And if so, who are some of your favorite players and teams that you admired?
Yeah, so I actually didn't watch much lacrosse growing up, but I really started watching it when I started in college playing. And I would say my biggest idol was Lizzie Colson. I actually got to play a year with her at the University of Maryland, but her style of play is someone I idolize. I think she plays with great awareness. She plays with freedom and joy, and she takes risks at the right moments. So she's someone definitely I look up to as a player, and still she's a pro player. She was on the USA team. Like, still follow her. We keep in touch. We became great friends at University of Maryland. But yeah, I didn't watch it before college, but as soon as I got to college and I was really surrounded by it, I definitely watched it a lot more, and I still do, and very much invested in it now.
Now, before college, like you mentioned, you played for your high school lacrosse team at Oakdale. Talk about your experience in high school playing lacrosse and what you took away from it.
Yeah, so sadly, my high school career was a little different because I ended up tearing my ACLs my sophomore year and then my senior year. So I really only had one good season of high school lacrosse because my freshman year I was at Good Counsel, which is another school, just did a season there. But at Oakdale, my junior year, it's definitely different going from the club team I'm surrounded by where everyone's committed D1 to high school where I played where not many are. There was a couple that were, but overall it was a team that mostly just did it for the fun. They did it to play sport in the spring, or it was just a fun sport to play. And everyone, we were a very competitive team. Everyone on the team was, but it wasn't at the caliber of those Howard County girls or their Baltimore County girls. But in terms of how it prepared me, I think it maintained my fun, if that makes sense. Like I loved playing lacrosse at Oakdale because I enjoyed my friendships with all my teammates. My coach was great, and I genuinely enjoyed the sport because it wasn't pressure as much as club was for me at the time. I just got to go and I was relaxed and I got to play free. I was in midfield for my high school team too, which was just the freedom on offense. I don't know much about offense, so definitely just that relaxed aspect I brought to college. I also think I was a leadership role at a younger age for my high school. So sophomore year, I was pretty much in a leadership position right away. So I had to get confidence. I had to be more vocal. Again, I brought that fun, silly aspect, but I also was a serious leader on and off the field too. So that definitely translated with me to college.
Now, I know you only played like 2 full seasons there, but what was like the best memory you have from your high school lacrosse days?
Yeah, so I have two, one on and one off. So one on was we played our rival team, Middletown, which is always a great battle against them. They were a great team. And we ended up winning, I think, by a couple, but it was a close game. I remember it was at Middletown, it was packed. So like they had like a double header. So their men's game was playing after us. So it was packed crowd. Everyone was like cheering on Middletown. It's their home crowd. We ended up winning. And I just remember that feeling of like, just like everyone was excited. Like, no, I don't remember who scored, couldn't tell you who ended up getting the ground balls, the save. Like, I couldn't tell you any of the stats individually, but as a team, I remember it was one of our best games that we've ever played together. And we just had fun. And it's also fun winning an away game where the home crowd is going crazy. And then off the field, we did this little getaway camp as a team for 3 whole days. No one had any phones. You had nothing. And we all slept in one room on little, like, we had just our, what do you call them? Like, blankets, I don't know, blankets and pillows. And we just had to talk. Like, you didn't have anything but puzzles. We got to really know each other. We already knew each other very well, but that really bonded us. It was at a local cabin. We like walked around. It was very freeing not to have our cell phones. So I'll definitely remember that.
Now, you also played club lacrosse for Heroes. What was your club lacrosse experience like, and what did you take away from it? And how did that sort of like help make your transition to Maryland easier? Because it seems to me, talking to other players, that the club lacrosse experience is sort of where you get recruited from, and sort of how you match yourself up to other commits as well.
Yeah, so club is definitely where you get recruited. It's definitely a higher level, at least especially for me, than high school. At the time, the rule was you were able to talk to coaches and get recruited your freshman year of high school. So that was when I was like 15. Um, but the club experience, I started in, I want to say, fifth grade in Heroes. My mom works in Howard County, so she reached out to people and got me in that club. I actually started a year above in my fifth grade because they didn't have fifth grade club yet when I was playing. And then, yeah, once I got on my team, we were a very close knit team. You kind of stick with the same people throughout once you're on it all the way up. Everyone's committing to these D1 programs in ninth grade, but then you're still playing in tournaments come throughout high school. So everyone's trying to get better. I think that also brought more of a competitive edge in tournaments as you would play against your future teammates. And that was also fun, but it was also competitive. Obviously, you want to beat them. Like, you want to show that you're better than them. But you also got to laugh about it the second you were off the field. You would even laugh on the field, honestly, with them. So that was a really cool experience. I think the travel that comes with club teaches you a lot. You're always on the go every weekend. You don't have summers, unlike normal students in high school. So your summers are lacrosse, which again, it just makes you bond more with the people in the lacrosse community because everyone there is going through the same thing. So I definitely think the club community brought that sense of like, okay, wow, like lacrosse is worth it. Like we're here for something that we all love and we're all competitive and you're competing against your best friends, but you're also getting the chance to travel the nation. So it's definitely really cool.
What was your recruiting process like with Maryland, and what made you want to go there versus other schools you might have looked at?
Yeah, so freshman year, I visited a bunch of schools and they were all great. The visits were great. Can't complain about any of them, honestly. I was so young at the time looking back on it now, but Maryland, there was something about it as soon as I stepped on, and the coaches, the players, like individually, you just felt already part of the team right away, and they knew your name. They shook your hand. They asked questions about you from high schools, and you didn't even think they knew who you were. The coaches made me feel at home right away, and I know that's probably what every single person says coming from Maryland, but it's so true. I fell in love with university. I learned so much about it. I didn't know much. I was always against going to Maryland, like my home state, but right away fell in love with it. Met so many great people from the academic side to the athletic side. I just felt so welcomed right away that I was like, this is just home for me. And I have to come here.
What was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college lacrosse?
Yeah, so I think the biggest adjustment was right off the bat the conditioning for me, especially, but pretty much any freshman. I think it's a rude awakening of you run or lift every day. You also practice every day. Just the overall grind on the body, and even now as a senior, it's a lot worse. Like I can't believe freshman year I thought it was bad, but um, you definitely have to adjust to it. Your body's sore. You don't lift nearly as much or the same as you did in high school. You're not running the same. I mean, you're going against some of the best college athletes as a freshman, so you're 18. And so just like maintaining your body, maintaining feeling good, playing good. But Maryland does a great job at keeping the balance of having fun off the field, but going hard on the field. And everyone there is so supportive, and all the athletic trainers. So it was a pretty smooth adjustment in terms of that. But yeah, that was definitely something that you had to learn quick. Is like, okay, got to take care of the body while you do it.
Now, during your freshman year, you missed the entire season due to an injury. How did you handle the adversity of not playing that season, and what did you do during that time period to recover, but also get ready for the following year?
Yeah, so as I said, my senior year I tore my ACL late, so I was coming in with an ACL tear. I really just focused on the mental aspect of the game. I watched as much as I could on the sideline. I was asking questions. I was learning. Um, Honestly, taking in everything and anything I could, especially as a freshman. The game is so different than high school. I think, weirdly enough, that was also ended up being our COVID year. So I didn't miss much in terms of a whole season. I had 6 games where it wasn't even our best season, honestly. So I got to see the ups and downs, the losses and the wins, and how the coaching staff, as well as all the players, we bounced back and we learned from it. And the process of going back and watching film, I did everything but play. So I think in terms of the mental game, I was really very aware and trying to just soak in as much information as I could.
Do you think watching the game helps you get a different perspective on the sport, and that can translate on the field once you start playing?
Oh, 100%. I think watching the game, you learn from others' mistakes, but you also learn from their strengths. So, for instance, with Lizzie, I would watch her, and there were things that our defensive coach Kenneth would point out. Either she was doing great or doing poorly, and to me, that's a role model. Like you want to make mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not going to learn. You're also that means you're trying and you're challenging and pushing others. But I learned the positioning correctly on defense, or when to slide, or how to communicate the terminology, and so many different aspects of the game that you don't pick up when you're playing. So definitely watching that season helped me further in my career.
Now, during your sophomore year, but also throughout your time with Maryland, you've been one of the top teams in the country. How do you guys sort of maintain the consistency throughout a regular season? And how do you sort of handle the pressure of also being one of the top ranked teams in the country? Because as you guys are aware, you always have a target in your back, being Maryland, playing those other teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think our coaches do a really good job as players telling us not to listen to all the noise, that everyone circles Maryland on their calendar. They want to play us, they want to beat us. So everyone's going to give us their best game. So we always need to be ready for that. And I think that is why we're always so consistent, because every game we know our opponent's giving us their best game. So in terms of progress every day or improving or consistency, our coaches do a great job of preaching the little things. So the ground balls, we have a stat sheet of ground balls, cause turnovers, more than 10 goals, stopping the other team under 5 goals, draw controls, all the little things in the game that actually ends up winning or losing. So we really focus on those rather than the outcome, and then the outcome will come. And our coaches, again, do a great job of preaching that, and it really shows. We go over all of our stats after each game, and we really analyze like the areas we didn't do well, and look, that caused a goal, or we didn't score here, so then they scored, or we stopped them and then we capitalized on it. So I think definitely the little things in the game lead to the actual wins and the consistency overall.
Yeah, one thing I sort of noticed watching your team play, especially yourself, is I think you're really good at sort of creating ground balls and causing turnovers. So I sort of want to ask you, how do you work on that part of your game, and sort of what's your key to success in starting turnovers and getting those ground balls? Because as a newer lacrosse fan, that's something that really stuck out to me watching you play.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think in terms of ground balls, it's really just reacting. So being aware where the ball is, where it's going, reacting as soon as it hits the ground. The defensive coach always preaches one opportunity. We give them one opportunity to score. If it hits the ground, it's ours. In terms of cause turnovers, I think that's just anticipation as well as confidence in yourself as well as those around you. Like knowing you're able to defend on one and maybe get the back check, or defend the one and like push out the pass or push out the offensive person to make them have a bad pass, is because I'm confident with the people around me that they're there to support me. So in terms of that, I think it's not something you practice necessarily. I think over time you just naturally become better and better at it when you work with the people around you. But in terms of that, that comes with confidence too. I think once you start to get more and more confidence out there, you get more ground balls and you take more risk or get those cause turnovers, which again, they lead to great stats, but overall that's just individual stats. But if the whole game as a whole, there's a lot more that goes on in the defensive end beyond this.
Now, talk about what it's like playing in the Big Ten and just the competition you guys face every game.
Oh yeah, it's definitely competitive. I think all the programs are getting better and better. And like I said, we're the game that everyone wants to beat. We've definitely had our ups and downs in the Big Ten the last couple of years, winning against certain teams, losing against others. Everyone is a great competition, and in any day, one team can beat the other. I think it's definitely fun traveling to all those different places, as well as having them at our home game, at our home field. Um, a lot of the girls throughout the Big Ten, like we all played or grew up with in clubs. So just seeing them and how they're doing in their programs as well, it's really cool to see. But the competition is just insane. I mean, you see it this year. There was almost a lot of us that made the tournament.
The
So
national champion,
yeah,
Northwestern, won it.
Northwestern won it all. So yeah, you can't deny that Big Ten's one of the best leagues out there.
Is USC coming to you guys next year? How, and if so, how cool would it be to play in California next year?
Oh yeah, that would be insane. We haven't gotten our schedule or seen if they're fully coming to us or how that's going to work out, but they are coming to the Big Ten, so eventually we'll be playing them. But no, I don't know exactly if they're coming to us or how that's going to work, but hopefully we get to go out to Cali soon.
Now, your team won the Big Ten championship against Rutgers your sophomore year. What did that championship sort of mean to you? And just talk about what it was like winning that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a big moment for us as a program. We were a very young team. Um, and we just needed that confidence booster for that season. I think we always knew we had it in us, and we were at that game. I think it was tied at half actually, and we were like, we have so much more to give, and we went on a streak the second half, and I don't know if we even maybe we were able to score one in the second half, but as the defensive unit, I can speak for the defensive side. We put our foot down at half, and I remember that was a really big thing for us going further in the season is every play mattered. Within every play, every minute mattered, every second mattered, every opportunity mattered. So we really took that with us throughout then the NCAA tournament. But that game was really exciting to beat them, to win that Big Ten championship, to celebrate with the team. It was definitely a very cool experience.
Now, that year, you also made it to the Final Four in women's lacrosse. What was that experience like for you, both on and off the field, especially since it was in Baltimore that year?
Yeah, so I think again we were a very young team, and none of us had ever been there. We only had one, two maybe players who had ever gone to the Final Four before, and the experience as a whole was very unique. I mean, you're the top four teams left in the nation. You're playing in front of thousands of fans. I remember walking out being like, "Oh my gosh, like this is a lot of people." But weirdly enough, I wasn't stressed or I wasn't worried. I was just like, I'm gonna go play lacrosse. Like it's just another day or just another practice. And yeah, I think going into that game, we were very confident. We had a game plan. We stuck with it. We stuck with the little things, and we fought a hard game. I mean, props to Boston College. They put it out there at the end and beat us by one. But overall, on the field, we were never like, oh my gosh, like nervous. We were never scared. We were never. And honestly, like I kind of blacked out moments, not in a bad way, but in like I just tuned all the noise out. People were screaming for me apparently after the game. I didn't even know. Like I just was focused on the lacrosse game, and we all were out there, and our team was cheering as loud as they can. Everyone was. And, I mean, it was one of the probably the coolest lacrosse experience I've had yet to date in terms of it was at Hopkins Field, Homewood, which was packed. We had a couple rain delays, which was a little hard at first to just keep your head locked in before because it was several hours that our game got pushed back. But other than that, it was wild. It was definitely very fun.
What was sort of what you learned from that game against BC?
Yeah, I think overall I learned the pressure of it. I know I said I didn't feel nerves or anxiety about it, but I think subconsciously we all did a little bit just being a young team. And I think just having that experience under our belt, we're so much more confident naturally of like, oh, we're Final Four players. We deserve to be here. We deserve to be there again. We will be there again. So it just boosted our team's confidence as a whole, going forward into the next seasons. But learning from that game, I think we also learned like the game's never over. I think we were up by 3 there at the end, and they came back, which sucks. And we just needed to stop and put our foot down, like our defensive coach always says, and we never did that. So definitely took that with us in for future games and future seasons. So that was the main thing.
Now, as a defender, how do you guard Charlotte North?
Yeah, I mean, she was a great player. She still is, but at the game, I think she was just another player for us. We scouted her as if we would scout any other team. She is exceptional. We know that. We sent the double early on her. We did as much as we could. We tried to get on her hands. We know she has a great shot, but overall, like as a team, we don't scout just a player. We scout the team as a whole. So their offense was great offense. So we had a game plan and we stuck with it, and we did our best. And honestly, we performed pretty well, and we stuck with the game plan, and we gave one of the best offenses ever in the nation a really hard time. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you've played both against Charlotte North and Izzy Skane, and at least the time that I've been watching the sport, those have been like the two best players I've ever seen. Are they similar, or are there any differences between how good they are as attackers from a defending perspective?
Yeah, I think they're very much different players. I think they have a lot of confidence, and you can see that in their play. They're very creative. They both do creative moves. You can't anticipate exactly what they're going to do. I think Charlotte North has a lot of power on her shot, so does Izzy Skane. Izzy Skane also has some amazing feeds, and so you have to be aware of that as well. I think in terms of their games, their offenses are a lot different. So our game plan to defend them are completely different. Again, we don't really we know their individual tendencies, but as an offensive unit, Northwestern and Boston College, both when I played them, were very different. So that was they're definitely different. They're great players, but they have their differences in terms of their offensive sets and their offensive plays.
Now, being a redshirt junior last year, what type of leadership did you want to bring to the team? Would you consider yourself more of a vocal or lead by example type of player?
Yeah, I definitely think I was more of a vocal leader. Again, I kind of touched on this, but I love to bring the fun. I think everyone plays their best when they're having fun and enjoying the game. So I would definitely crack jokes here and there. I'm definitely a little goofball at points, but I know when to get serious. I also love to ask questions. I know what my coaches would say I ask too many, and there's times I do, and I'm learning not to ask as many at certain points. But I love to learn, and I think everyone around me sees that, and so I guess I lead by example in that way because everyone can learn something from someone throughout a practice. So yeah, that's probably what I do.
Now, what would you say was the biggest improvement you've made to your games from your freshman year to now? Because just looking at your stats, it seems like you've improved significantly since your freshman year, which is sort of what you want to see as a college athlete.
Yeah, I think as you get older, and I know I've talked about this and probably so many, but confidence is key. As you just get older, you're more free when you play. You more trust yourself. But I think that was a big one throughout the years, not just trusting myself, but those around me. And again, our defensive coach does a great job of really getting us to trust each other come this fall and connecting both on and off the field. So that's definitely huge. Beyond just the individual stats, that's what leads to them is team defense. So really working on that was key for me throughout the past couple years. I think individually, I try to be the best leader on the field. I like to be vocal. I like to direct, and I like to communicate openly with the other defenders around me, which also then helps me because they feel that they can do the same to me. And just again, being open and confident on the defensive end is huge. But again, working together, trusting one another, and just gaining that throughout the years has been really helpful.
Now, what did you take away from your team's performance this past year, losing to a really good Northwestern team in the Big Ten championship and losing to James Madison in the national tournament?
Yeah, so the Northwestern Big Ten championship was definitely a tough loss. You could see our progression from when we played them in the regular season to that game. So we fought hard. There were plays we wish we had back. There were calls we wish we had back. Um, but we fought hard, and honestly, it was a great Northwestern team who ended up winning it all. So can't complain on that one. In terms of the JMU game, we also fought hard. They were a great team. We really wanted that win as they'd beaten us in the season as well, but we never gave up. So I think a lot coming from that is we battled a lot this year with injuries, with outside circumstances, and just being out there and having the opportunity to play with your best friends. Like it was, you can't forget that. I mean, the loss sucked, but as a team, we learned a lot, and I think we're really ready to go for this upcoming season.
What are your goals? What are your team's goals and expectations for next season?
Yeah, I think as anyone would say, it's to win the national championship. So that's definitely a big goal, and that's our reach. And we think we can obtain it, and we're definitely giving it our all in training and conditioning. But I also think overall, it's just trusting one another. I think as a team, we love to balance. We love to hang out off the field, but on the field as well. So really, just getting this time this fall to connect with one another, learn each other's tendencies, welcome the incoming freshmen as well. Again, a lot of us not are coming back, so there's only a couple that had left prior season. So we're pretty comfortable with one another, but it's really just maintaining that confidence that we continue to have and just grow from there.
So we're now in a segment I like to call the non-lacrosse segment, where I ask you some non-lacrosse questions just to get to know you a little bit more off the field. So my first one is, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
That's a good one. I think I would probably want Emma Stone or Margot Robbie. I think she's great. I think Jennifer Lawrence is hilarious. So probably one of those three.
I think for me, either Tom Cruise, because I think he's super cool in all of his movies, and I would want my
Yeah,
life to look super interesting, even though it's not that.
yeah,
And then probably Andrew Garfield. I really liked him in The Social Network. I thought he was a good
yeah,
actor. He was good in Spider-Man too, so I
yeah.
think he would do a good job playing me.
No, he's a great actor.
Now, what music do you like to listen to?
I like to listen to a lot, so I'm all over the place. People tell you my liked playlist is everything from classical to country. So I love classical music, oddly enough, but I love a good country music. I like pop. I know that's probably not just a generic answer, but I love remixes. I think those are really interesting, especially when you're working out. So honestly, anything I'll listen to. So anyone have any reps, I'll listen.
That's awesome. I'm the same way though.
Yeah.
I can go from Frank Sinatra to Drake, and that's probably the
Yeah.
complete opposite types of music. So don't worry, I'm on the same boat as you. So
Yeah.
now, what is the most overrated holiday and what is the most underrated holiday?
Interesting. So I don't know. I don't know if Halloween's underrated, but it is in some ways. But I think it's very underrated. My lacrosse teammates and I are really big at Halloween. We love it. We celebrate it very big. And I think sometimes as you get older, it's not as big, but I think that's underrated. I think we should all still dress up and still have fun, just like when we were little kids. I think the most overrated one might be maybe St. Patrick's Day. I I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's a really fun one too, though. Honestly, I don't think any of them are very overrated because I like celebrating them all, but maybe St. Patrick's Day.
I would say underrated for me is probably like Christmas Eve. I don't know if
Okay.
that's considered a holiday, but that's like everyone sort of forgets about it. I think it's kind of the
Yeah.
excitement around Christmas is always super fun to sort of be a part of.
Yeah.
Overrated, I would say maybe New Year's Eve because like all you're
Yeah.
doing is just waiting for a clock to hit midnight. And it's just I don't really find it as fun as some of the other ones. So I'll probably say that one.
That's fair.
Now, who has the best style off the field, besides yourself, obviously?
I wouldn't even say that I do. I think May Marshall. She is a rising sophomore. Love her style. She's great. I mean, so many people have different styles, but I personally love May Marshall's style. So I'm gonna go with her.